It's Your Ship is an absolute fantastic book that you've got to own, you've got to read, you really have to know it like the back of your hand. It was written by Captain Michael Abrashoff, who was the captain of the USS Benefold, which was, the number one ship in the Navy at the time. And they have, I didn't know this before reading the books, but they actually have, competitions and rankings and ratings. And so pretty cool that our Navy is so structured that they would actually have rankings of who has the best ship. But in the book, It's Your Ship, Captain Abrashoff goes through the culture or the organizational style that he has. And in this book, it really kind of lays out how you can have an It's Your Ship culture at your place of work, at your place of business. And I've used it at two different places now, and it really is a phenomenal way of viewing your staff, of viewing your leadership, and really creating a collaborative culture. Now, I am not a huge fan of the word collaboration, and I'm not, because I've seen far too often what it's become to mean in today's postmodern world. In today's postmodern world where there's no empirical right or wrong, in today's postmodern world where everybody's beliefs and ideas are valued as the same, I'm just not buying it. I'm sorry, but somebody with 10,000 hours of experience, somebody with 30 years of experience, may know a little bit more than a 16-year-old who's still in high school. And so sometimes we place way too much value on people who are just winging it, or people who just came up with an idea. Now, that's not to say that somebody can come up with a great idea anytime, any place, anywhere, any age, any, race, sex, doesn't matter, male, female. But when we talk about collaboration, when we talk about being in a place of business, and you're at the table and you're talking about implementing strategies, I want people who've done some research. I want people who've had some experience. I want people who've actually taken the time to study and not just showed up at a meeting and are just, throwing out on a whim their idea. I want people who've really, dug in deep. Now, that's not what we're talking about. In fact, in It's Your Ship, we see how to collaborate in the right way, and how to create a culture, a winning culture. And so one of the things that, you may not realize, but on any ship, any battleship, they have usually two primary functions. I mean, one is they have their jobs, they have their duties. They they gotta, mop floors and clean and, cook food and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this is, some of these vessels have a couple thousand people on them. And so it's a pretty intricate thing to be on a warship. But here's the deal. These ships are also warships. And so our soldiers are warriors, and they're out there ready to fight. And so at any given time, you're mopping the deck, and the next thing you know, you're in a battle. And so they really have to have kind of these two different hats that they wear. They have to be very, very organized. Well, in It's Your Ship, what we're doing is we're taking this crew of many different departments, this crew of a lot of different rankings, a lot of different staff, different areas of the ship, different roles and responsibilities, and, people who are looking at a monitor versus, people who are flying a plane versus people who are driving the ship versus people who, are shooting rockets or missiles. I mean, there's just a lot going on behind the scenes that you and I are not privy to. There's a chain of command. Look, there's a chain of command. You've got a captain of a ship, you've got an admiral, you've got the president, you've got the Constitution. And so nobody is autonomous. I think sometimes especially in the workforce, especially if you're not in, let's say, a franchise system where where it's well defined, like who corporate is, who the franchisee, the owner operator is, who the staff is. And when we break it down that way, people forget about the culture. They forget about, well, they get lost in who they are and what their role is in this organization. So there's two common problems that we see. One, the leaders. The leaders, they don't really value their staff. They don't value them, and we see this because they don't empower them. They tend to micromanage. They tend to, they'll not pay attention in long stretches of times, and then pay too much attention. And then the second problem we see is with the staff. And the staff generally does not take ownership. And that's really the key word that we want you to understand with "it's your ship." See, on a military vessel, every soldier has to take the mentality of, look, this is my ship. If I don't do my job, people die. If I don't do my job, people die. If the 19-year-old who's viewing the monitoring screen doesn't locate that sub that's, hiding, then the whole ship runs the risk of getting blown out of the water. And so every single person on that ship needs to take ownership. Every single knob, every single button, everything needs to work properly, or we all die. It's a life or death situation on the war vessel. And so we really see kind of that team, together everyone achieves more mentality on a warship. But we can take these examples and have an "it's your ship" mentality in our organization. It begins by humbling yourself. Yes, humbling yourself. And again, most people don't realize, but when you're an owner of an organization, guess what? You're the first one to show up, the last one to leave. You are the one who should be most willing to do the biggest jobs and the smallest jobs. I learned from Herb Pfiffner, when I was at Seattle's Union Gospel Mission. No job too big, no task too small. That's ownership. That's taking ownership. That's taking responsibility. In a collaborative way, when we look at "it's your ship," what we're trying to produce as leaders is we want to produce a place that is a place where there's collaboration, there's teamwork. We want a place where we give responsibility so that people understand, hey, it's up to you. It's on you. You have responsibility. There's consequences for you not meeting deadlines. There's consequences for you, when your department doesn't fulfill its role. In doing that and collaborating, giving responsibility, what we're really doing is empowering. We're empowering our management. We're empowering our staff to go out and get things done. And so in the empowerment, we need to give them freedom. We need to give them the freedom to risk. We need to give them the freedom to fail, not to be reckless, but to have the freedom to try things, so that they're not weak, so that they're not afraid, so that they're not uncreative. We don't want to keep things the same forever. Any business that keeps things the same forever dies. We need to learn how to adapt or die, and so we need to empower our staff. When we do that, when we give them responsibility and empowerment, that's what gives them the ownership. Now they know, hey, I can take control of the situation. I'm not being micromanaged. This is mine. It's my department. And that's a really big thing. We give people titles. I was CEO of an organization. We give people titles like executive director or executive, or the head of transportation. Well, let them be the head then. Give them that ownership. Don't micromanage them, but keep them accountable. We use this culture method of collaboration, of responsibility, of empowerment, of ownership, and then we keep them accountable. Hey, look, there's got to be outcomes. Right? We have to have results. We have to come together in a coach meeting and evaluate our outcomes and examine what's going on and keep people accountable. And we do that finally in this "it's your ship" culture, finally we do this by being transparent. Hey, again, being on a worship, you can't be quiet, you can't be shy, you can't be afraid. You have to let people know what's going on. That danger that you're not letting people know, that concern that you have, may cost your ship getting sunk, may cost your business getting sunk. And so we need to learn how to be transparent in our communication. And so in the It's Your Ship culture, It's Your Ship organization style, it really encourages people to take an ownership and a responsibility by giving them by empowering them and collaborating with them, and then following up by being accountable and transparent. Because at the end of the day, it's your ship.